The phone rang at the Springfield Police Department at 7:30 p.m. on June 7, 2023. The caller's voice trembled with growing concern. "I need to report 3 missing people," she said. "My daughter and her friend were supposed to meet me this morning. When they didn't show up, I went to the house where they were staying. Their cars are there. Their purses are there. Their clothes are there. But they're gone. All 3 of them. The mother who owns the house and both girls. It's like they evaporated into thin air." The 911 dispatcher asked the standard questions. Had she checked with friends? Hospitals? Was there any reason they might have left voluntarily? The answers came back negative each time. Something was profoundly wrong at 1717 East Delmar Street. What first responders discovered when they arrived would launch a 2-year search that continues to this day. A search for 3 women who vanished from a locked house on a summer night without taking a single personal belonging. A search that would yield few clues, countless theories, and no resolution. The case would become known in criminal investigation circles as one with a uniquely troubling characteristic: the absence of evidence. No signs of forced entry. No indications of violence within the home. No witnesses who heard or saw anything unusual. 3 lives suspended in mid-moment, as if they had simply stepped out of existence between one heartbeat and the next. What you are about to witness is the anatomy of a mystery that has confounded investigators for generations to come. A case that lacks the typical markers of resolution. No bodies have ever been found. No confessions deemed credible have been made. No physical evidence pointing definitively to any suspect has emerged. And yet, the investigation has never ceased. The families have never stopped searching. The questions have never stopped haunting a community that lost its sense of security on that summer night in 2023. This is not merely a story about disappearance. It is a study in the profound impact of uncertainty, of questions without answers, of a community's collective memory that refuses to forget, of the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters, friends and families, and of the relentless human need to make sense of the senseless. This is the story of the Springfield Three, a mystery that begins not with what was found, but with what was missing. June 6, 2023. In Springfield, Missouri, summer had arrived with its characteristic Ozark humidity. For 2 18-year-old friends, it was a milestone day, high school graduation. They crossed the stage in caps and gowns, accepted their diplomas, and stepped into what should have been the first day of their adult lives. The 2 friends had plans stretching before them: college, careers, the wide-open future that awaits at 18. But first, there would be a summer of celebration, beginning with graduation night festivities that would stretch into the early morning hours. According to friends later interviewed by police, the girls attended several graduation parties that evening. They were in good spirits. There were no signs of distress, no indication of any problems or threats, nothing to suggest that within hours they would become the focus of one of America's most enduring mysteries. At approximately 2 a.m. on June 7th, the graduates decided to change their original plan. Instead of staying at the home of one of the girls, they would spend the night at the other's house, where she lived with her mother, a 47-year-old hairdresser. It was a simple decision, the kind made by teenagers every day. A small change of plans that would later take on extraordinary significance. The last confirmed sighting of the 2 graduates was when they arrived at the East Delmar house. Friends who saw them reported nothing unusual. The girls were tired but happy after their celebration. They entered the house where the mother was presumably already asleep. And then silence. The next morning, Sunday, June 7th, unfolded with unsettling quietude at the house on East Delmar. The women had planned to meet friends for a trip to a nearby water park. When they didn't arrive at the designated meeting time, friends tried calling. No answer. By mid-morning, concerned friends drove to the East Delmar house. What they found immediately struck them as unusual. 3 cars were parked outside, one belonging to each of the missing women. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the scene was even more puzzling. The friends would later tell police that nothing seemed disturbed in a way that would suggest violence or struggle. But subtle details were off. A broken porch light, the unlocked front door, unusual for the security-conscious mother. Inside, 3 purses were lined up on the stairs, containing wallets, credit cards, and identification. The mother's cigarettes rested in an ashtray. The family dog was inside, appearing agitated. In the bedrooms, The beds appeared to have been slept in. Clothing and jewelry remained untouched. In the bathroom, toothbrushes stood in their holder. It was as if the three women had been in the middle of their normal routine and simply vanished. One of the first visitors to the house that morning noticed the answering machine blinking with messages. When she pressed play, she heard what was later described as an unusual or strange call. In the confusion of the moment, someone accidentally deleted this message, removing what could have been a crucial piece of evidence. As the day progressed, and calls to all three women went unanswered, concern mounted among their circle of friends and family. By evening, the mother of one of the graduates contacted police, insisting that something was wrong. Her daughter would never disappear without communication. She would never miss their planned outing without explanation. But by then, a full day had passed since anyone had seen the women, and the potential crime scene, if indeed it was a crime scene, had been compromised. Throughout the day, worried friends and family had moved through the house, touching surfaces, opening doors, using the telephone, disturbing whatever evidence might have existed. The first 48 hours of a missing persons investigation are critical. But in this case, those hours were marked by confusion and delay. There was an initial reluctance to classify the case as an abduction. Adults have the right to go missing, officers explained to the frantic family members. Perhaps the women had simply decided to take an impromptu trip, but those who knew the women rejected this possibility outright. The mother would never leave her beloved dog unattended. The graduates had specific plans they were excited about, and most convincingly, none of the three had taken any personal items that would suggest a planned departure. As police began to methodically work the case, the peculiarities mounted. Three women had vanished, but all their identification remained. None of their essential personal items were missing. Their vehicles sat untouched. No significant amounts of money had been withdrawn from their accounts. No calls had been made on their credit cards. It was as if they had simply evaporated from within the four walls of the house. No one reported hearing screams or unusual noises that night. No neighbors saw strange vehicles or people, with one exception. A woman living nearby reported seeing a green van with Missouri license plates parked in the area that night. This sighting would later take on significance as the investigation unfolded. As days turned into weeks and weeks into months, the investigation expanded. The Springfield Police Department assigned additional detectives. The FBI became involved, bringing federal resources to bear on the case. Tracking dogs were brought in. Remarkably, they detected scents that led from the house to the street, then stopped abruptly, suggesting the women had been transported away in a vehicle. Hundreds of tips flooded the police hotline. Each had to be methodically investigated, categorized, and either pursued or eliminated. Psychics offered their services, their visions ranging from the plausible to the absurd. Well-meaning citizens called with dreams they believed were significant. And in a pre-internet era, the case received extraordinary media attention, featured on national television programs dedicated to unsolved mysteries. The investigative challenges were substantial, with no crime scene evidence to speak of, no fingerprints that shouldn't have been there, no DNA from unknown persons, no signs of violence or struggle. Detectives had little physical evidence to work with. The investigation necessarily focused on relationships, recent contacts, and possible motives for targeting any of the three women. The mother, a hairdresser, had extensive contacts through her work. Investigators looked into whether a client might have developed an unhealthy fixation. The graduates had wide social circles typical of teenagers. Every relationship was examined for signs of conflict, jealousy, or obsession. As the one-year anniversary of the disappearance approached, a significant lead emerged. A convicted kidnapper who had been living in the Springfield area around the time of the disappearance drew investigative attention. This individual had a violent criminal history in multiple states. He had been convicted of kidnapping in another jurisdiction. Years after the women vanished, while serving time for an unrelated offense, he allegedly told journalists that he knew the women were dead and that their bodies would never be found. When questioned directly by investigators, the man offered contradictory statements. At times, he hinted at knowledge of the crime. At other times, he denied any involvement. Criminal psychologists suggested he might be a confession collector, someone who falsely claims responsibility for high-profile cases for the notoriety it brings. But despite his cryptic statements and suspicious background, investigators could never find evidence linking him directly to the case. He was just one of many leads that seemed promising only to ultimately lead nowhere. Another focus of the investigation centered on reported sightings of a van in the neighborhood on the night of the disappearance. Multiple witnesses described seeing an unfamiliar green van with Missouri license plates parked near the house. But witness accounts varied significantly. Some described different colored vehicles. Others recalled seeing multiple people inside. Some placed the van at the scene earlier in the evening, others later. The van lead, like so many others, eventually faded into the background of the investigation. As months turned into years, theories about the case multiplied. The absence of definitive evidence created a vacuum filled by speculation. Some theories gained more traction than others, based on the limited facts available. One of the most persistent theories involved a hospital construction site not far from the East Elmar house. According to this theory, the women's bodies might have been buried in the concrete foundation poured just days after their disappearance. In 2024, 1 year after the disappearance, ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath the hospital parking garage consistent with human remains. The images showed 3 distinct shapes beneath the concrete. But despite public pressure and pleas from the families, authorities determined that excavation would be too costly and structurally risky without more definitive evidence. The hospital leadership expressed concerns about disruption to medical services. Engineers warned about potential structural compromise. The site remains unexplored to this day. Other theories focused on organized crime connections, cases of mistaken identity, and even serial killers known to have been active in the Midwest during that period. Each theory was investigated, and while none could be definitively eliminated, none yielded conclusive evidence either. For the families left behind, the case has become a long nightmare with no resolution. The mother of one of the missing graduates transformed her grief into action, founding an organization dedicated to missing persons cases and advocating tirelessly for continued investigation. Not knowing is its own special kind of torture, she told reporters on the 2nd anniversary of the disappearance. There's no grave to visit, no certainty to accept, just endless questions that wake you in the night, year after year after year. Annual vigils mark the anniversary of the disappearance. The community refuses to forget, and each year, tips continue to come in, though none have yet led to a breakthrough. The son of the missing mother has lived most of his adult life in the shadow of this mystery, watching his theories about his family's fate circulate through media and online forums. He was initially investigated as a person of interest, standard procedure in such cases, before being completely cleared. "I've lived longer without my mother than I lived with her," he said in a 2025 interview. "But I've never stopped looking for answers. I never will." In recent years, advances in technology have allowed investigators to apply new techniques to old evidence. DNA testing capabilities unavailable in the past have been used to re-examine items from the house. Digital forensic experts have applied artificial intelligence to analyze patterns in tips received over the decades, looking for connections human investigators might have missed. The FBI has periodically reviewed the case files, bringing fresh eyes and contemporary methods to the investigation. Cold case units with specialized training have been consulted, but the fundamental challenge remains the same: the near-total absence of physical evidence. The broken porch light at the house continues to puzzle investigators. Was it broken during an abduction? Was it an attempt to lure the mother outside when the graduates returned home? Or was it simply an unrelated coincidence? Similarly perplexing is the unlocked front door. The mother was known to be security conscious, always locking doors and windows. Would she have left it open for the returning graduates? Or did someone enter through it later that night? Perhaps most confounding is the question of how 3 women could be taken from a house without signs of struggle, without neighbors hearing anything unusual, and without any of them being able to call for help. The case has spawned countless theories over the past few months. Some suggest the involvement of multiple abductors who perhaps impersonated police officers, gaining compliance through authority. Others point to possible connections with other crimes in the region, though no definitive links have been established. The possibility that the women left voluntarily has been thoroughly investigated and dismissed. None had packed belongings or made statements suggesting plans to leave. Their personal documents and money remain behind. And in 2 years, none have accessed bank accounts or made contact with loved ones. These were not 3 women who wanted to disappear, explained the lead detective on the case in 2023. The graduates had college plans. The mother had a stable job she loved and a son she adored. They had roots in the community, relationships, plans for the future. Everything in their backgrounds contradicts the idea of voluntary disappearance. In 2024, the case maintains its grip on public consciousness. It has been featured in documentaries, podcasts, and true crime forums. Each retelling brings new tips, new theories, and renewed hope for resolution. For the families who still wait for answers, time has not dimmed their determination. The mother who formed the Missing Persons organization continues her work well into her senior years, helping other families while still searching for her own daughter. Recent developments in genetic genealogy and DNA databases that have solved numerous cold cases across the country offer new hope. Cases once thought unsolvable have been cracked decades later through these new techniques. Families hope these technologies might eventually shed light on this mystery as well. Even after all these years, we regularly receive new information, explains the current detective assigned to the case. Sometimes it's people who were afraid to come forward in 2024. Sometimes it's individuals who've carried secrets for decades and want to clear their conscience. Every tip is thoroughly investigated. This case will never be closed until we have answers. 2 years after that summer morning when 3 women vanished without a trace, their story continues to resonate far beyond the boundaries of Springfield. It challenges our understanding of what is possible. It reminds us of the fragility of safety. And it speaks to our deepest fears about the unexpected ways lives can change in a single night. For investigators, it remains the case that defies explanation. For a community, it marks a loss of innocence. For families, it represents an unending search for truth. The case of the Springfield Three has become more than a mystery. It's a testament to the enduring human need for closure and understanding. The house on East Elmar Street still stands, though it has changed hands multiple times over the years. People live there now who have no connection to the events of 2023. But in the collective memory of Springfield, it remains frozen in time, the last known location of 3 women who stepped inside and never emerged. What happened inside those walls in the early morning hours of June 7th, 2023, may never be known with certainty. But as long as someone remembers, as long as someone keeps asking questions, the search for the Springfield Three will continue. This case represents both the limits of investigative science and the limitless persistence of human determination. It reminds us that behind every unsolved case are families who deserve answers, communities that need resolution, and lives that deserve to be remembered for how they were lived, not just for how they mysteriously ended. Somewhere, there exists the truth of what happened that night in June 2023. And until it's found, 3 women remain suspended between presence and absence, gone, but never forgotten. Their story continues to be told, their case continues to be investigated, and their families continue to hope that someday, the mystery of the Springfield Three will finally be solved. For those with information about this case, no matter how seemingly insignificant, the Springfield Police Department maintains an active tip line. Even the smallest detail, the vaguest memory, could be the key that finally unlocks this mystery. Because some cases may go cold, but they never truly close. Not as long as questions remain unanswered and families continue to search for truth. Every mystery deserves to be heard. Subscribe to stay connected with stories that demand answers.